Good morning, everyone, and welcome to part two of our 2026 Business and Life Planning Clinic. If you were not with us for segment one, we have it on recording, and so please reach out to Laura that you see here on the Zoom with us. Her email is her first name at empirebuilders.pro, and she'll go ahead and make sure that you get the recording of that. Even if you want to just go and review it. If you didn't miss it and you want to review it, that's fantastic as well. If you're registered for this and you're listening to it, you will have received a workbook for the entire business planning clinic that we're doing. And so what I wanted to do is just jump in real quickly and do a high level recap and then take any shares on the work that you did from last week until now, because I'm confident that for those of you that saw last week's session, that you went and did the work that was the what there is to do next in preparation for today. So I want to get some shares and feedback on that. Let me start off by saying that I was having a conversation yesterday with somebody that owns a Realty One franchise on the East Coast. Well, not all the way to the East Coast, but a good way on the way to the East Coast. And they had just been at their convention, and he was sharing, 2026 is going to be a better year than 2025. And that was the forecast for everyone. And why we were on a call is because they do what's called a business enrichment day for their brokerage every year. And he asked me to be the closing speaker for it. And so this was a prep call that we were on. And I said, well, what was the highlight or the takeaway from your convention this year? And he said, well, that 2026 is going to be so much better for people than 2025. And I said, what if it's not? And he said, well, what do you mean? He goes, we're bringing you in for some motivation and inspiration. And I'm like, yep. And motivation and inspiration is not going to make your 2026 better than 2025. So tell me why you think 2026 is going to be better than 2025. Like, let's really have a conversation around this. I mean, optimism is fantastic. And in reality, that's not going to be everyone's experience. So as they were talking, Brian Buffini had spoken, and Tony Robbins was there and did a thing on state. And Brian Buffini, I guess, I wrote it down. He makes predictions every year, and 34 of the last 35 years, he's been correct. And he said, well, Brian Buffini says that we're going to lose 20% of the agent base in 2026, and that closed transactions are going to increase 10%. And so based on that, there was this idea that 2026 is going to be a better year than 2025. And I'm here to tell you that that is just not true for every person. And whether it's going to be true for you or not true for you is going to depend on two things. Number one, what you're thinking about and how you're looking at your business. And number two, what you're actually doing and executing. Because things get created twice. They get created first in your mind and second in reality. So, for the general consensus, I said, well, tell me about what everyone's experience has been this year. He's like, well, it was just a really tough market for a lot of people. And so some people were going back and getting jobs. Okay, well, that would be an employee mindset, not an entrepreneur mindset. And so now we've got a thinking issue, right? Because if someone's like, well, I can always go back to XYZ or what I was doing before, that's not how entrepreneurs think. Entrepreneurs are like all in, deep into the pool. Like, we're going to figure it out. We're going to make it work. So we've got a thinking issue there that's not aligned with the outcome that wants to be created. And so it's just a really interesting conversation. And why I'm opening up the call today with that piece of the conversation is that what we talked about last week in segment one is getting the alignment mentally with what it is that you say that you want, getting clear on what that is, getting pen to paper, creating something from nothing, not based on what happened in 2025 or any year before now, like starting from a blank, clean, fresh slate. So you're not dragging the past into the future, like really starting clear on take everything off the table and go all in on being intentional around what things are going to look like moving forward. And so everyone had the opportunity to go through and do that with the blank canvas exercise, the SWOT analysis, where you're getting feedback from people that are in your world, in your life, around where your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities lie, to help you create a different level of awareness, right? Because before there's any kind of change, there needs to be an elevated level of awareness. And then also starting to really look at what is the experience that I want to be having. And so when we look at goals and goal setting, there's goal setting is easy, goal achieving is entirely different scenario. And we talked about big goals and setting them big so that it changes the behavior that we have to where we go further than we ever would have if we had set a quote unquote realistic goal. But I think what's important to realize about goals is that it sets a target. And I want you to all think about a target. And the clear vision is the center of the target. And then there's rings that go around the target as well. And having a really clear vision of what that center target is and then working towards it keeps your mind focused on being in alignment with what is the activities, behaviors, and tweaks that there are for me to make in my perspectives or the way that I'm thinking, which will dictate a change in what I feel and then ultimately what I go out and do. And so the purpose of having really clear goals in every aspect of your life is that you start to set your subconscious mind so that it can go to work and bring in people, opportunities, circumstances that you wouldn't otherwise see because you have something that's clearly defined. Versus how a lot of people set goals, which is a pass fail. I did good, I didn't do good. I'm comparing it to something and rendering some judgment around what the results are. Results are always just going to be the feedback. And so as we jump into the conversation today, would love to come off mute. I know we've got a lot to cover of the nitty gritty of the numbers of actually planning for your business, which is important to look at. And I know some people love this part and some people are just like, just let me go to work and see where I end up, because looking at numbers makes me crazy if I'm doing anything other than factoring what 2.5% or 3% is. And so we're going to go a little bit past that today. But before we do, wanted any ahas, takeaways, or things that from our first session, for those of you that were on it and have done some of the work, what you discovered in doing that. And you'll know it's your turn because you're off mute speaking.
Me? Okay. So yeah, I mean, one of the things that I had worked on in my blank canvas I'd written was the letting go of the stress and guilt of my previous mistakes. I am an overthinker, and I have realized I'm consciously relaxing in my mind and, kind of, okay, would have, could have, what ifs are gone. This is the reality, and I'm moving forward and not feeling I did what was best at that time for whatever this situation was. So letting go of guilt has been a huge thing for me. And that has given me a lot of clarity, I feel.
I love that. And so one of the things that happens when you release guilt is you create space to create something new. And so when you have a very clear intention of what you want to create moving forward, and now you've released the guilt that's holding you in the past, you have the energy and the space for those new things to come in and be created. So good job. Nice work, Ela. And thank you for sharing. Who else?
I think for me, I keep having to remind myself to do the think bigger. I keep finding myself coming back to, well, but what's realistic, and letting go with that. So I have to keep reminding myself as I go through the process.
I love that. And that is quite often what there is to do, right? It's when we don't catch ourselves and we don't have awareness that nothing else can change or be different. So, if you look at emotionally intelligent people, what they do better than non emotionally intelligent people is they're constantly increasing their levels of awareness. They're catching themselves faster and then they're pivoting into something that is going to be more effective versus not so effective. So, good job on elevating your awareness. All right, who else? Okay, well, the abundance of shares have come to a conclusion quickly. We're going to keep moving. And so here's what I would invite you to do is keep doing the work that you started doing. And if you didn't get through the entire part of the workbook up until where we're at today, it's a work in progress. Keep moving forward on it. So what we're gonna start off today with in concept is helping to narrow a focus in the context of business. I'm going to talk about the 4 pillars and then have Selena add whatever she wants to add in. And then Selena, I'll have you jump in on the actual numbers piece because you're a much better person to have that conversation than me. Tag team. Okay, so when we look at 4 different pillars of income, this is a strategy in your business as to where your business is coming from. So some people may just be like, well, I go out and have conversations and I'm talking to people and I don't track where it's coming from. I just know who I'm talking to and that I'm talking to them. And maybe I'm working off CRM. Maybe I'm not working off CRM. If somebody great comes into an open house, fantastic. I'll pick them up. If not, they slide on by. And this is how a lot of agents that, operate in less than being like really intentional. But if you have 4 different pillars that you're developing, what that does is if you think about a stool that's got 4 legs on it, you're going to have a really stable business because you're going to have business intentionally coming from 4 different places. So what we know is the fastest, most effective way to get business is obviously going to be your sphere, your circle, your warm circle of influence, right? And so if you've got a top 50, that could be not necessarily the 50 people that are going to transact with you this year, but 50 people that are going to send you at least one referral. We talk about that, and we have a whole program for that, that if you want to know how to develop that, we can share that with you. And a very intentional development of it can lead to many, many, many transactions based on how well you work that plan or that program. So that could be an example of a pillar of income. I would say figure out where you are most energized, right? Like I have a girlfriend and she's been in the business 20 years and she gets so much of her business because she throws events all year long. She'll throw them at restaurants, she'll throw them at her house, and she invites, clients, she invites other agents, she invites friends, and she loves entertaining. And this is where she gets a good chunk of her business is just bringing people together and creating amazing experiences around food and wine. She's a sommelier. She used to be in the hospitality industry. And so that is a pillar of income for her, right? Other pillars of income could be if you love doing open houses and you're going to do them at random times, not just when everyone else does them on the weekends, and you love being there and generating business, that could be a pillar of income from you for you. In the workbook, there's different ideas on where you can generate business from, but the idea is that you've got one that you are very intentionally building, and then as you've got that one working for you and going, add in another one, or maybe you've got 2 going at the same time. And so the idea is that if one completely dries up and goes away, like, oh, let's say that your business was completely built on open houses and it's the pandemic. That's kind of an issue because your pillar of income just went poof, right? Of course, nobody's expecting another one of those, but life happens all the time. And so when you have a diversified business plan, again, around these pillars, it's going to create an intentionality so that where you are most energized to work in your business, you are, and that you've got this pillar that you're developing and then adding multiple pillars in. Farming could be one, door knocking could be one, geofarming could be another. Attending events could be a pillar of income for you if you attend a lot of events that are community events or things that you're not personally throwing or putting on. There's all kinds of, just think of wherever the people are that you want to develop and spend time, energy, and effort. Maybe you're volunteering in your community and that's pillar of income. Maybe you've got kids in school and so you're volunteering in all the parent stuff and developing relationships there, and that is developing a pillar of income for you consistently for business. Just where is it that you want to invest more time, or you already enjoy investing time? Anything that you'd add to that, Selena, and then I'll pass it to you to go through or pull up the workbook and jump into numbers.
Yeah, the only other thing I would add, I was speaking to an agent this morning on a validation call, is to create a business plan for each one. So when someone says open houses, once they want it to be a pillar, as a coach, I would say, great, exactly what does that look like? How many are you holding? How often are you holding them? What are you going to do differently than you've done in the past as far as prep, follow-up? Examples of that would be like, how far in advance am I advertising it? Am I pushing it out via social media by a specific day? Am I going to door knock 100 homes or call 100 homes to invite the neighborhood to the open house, right? It has to be more than just identifying it. It's creating an actual executable strategy that you're going to implement. And then something that I didn't come up with, it was actually another coach, and I really loved the concept, is sometimes people get bogged down and they're like, oh, it's 4 pillars. How am I going to focus on each one of these things? And she had 2 ways for you to do it. One was you could say on Mondays, I do this pillar of every week, every Monday of every week, it's this. Tuesdays, I'm focused on this one, Wednesdays, or you could say week 1 of the month, I'm focused on open houses and really developing that strategy and implementing everything that needs to be done. Week 2, it's top 50, week 3. So the idea is that you're putting it on your calendar, because if it's not there, it doesn't exist. And you're very strategic at integrating and implementing what you have. And I'm going to answer Debbie's question. Is a pillar different than a niche? Yes, essentially it is, because you could say open houses, and I wouldn't even, like, I'm trying to think of like a niche that, give me an example, Debbie. Like, what are you thinking?
Senior citizens.
Senior citizens. It can be, because there's a couple of different things you can do with senior citizens, right? So I would say senior citizens as a whole is a pillar, and then there are different strategies with that. It can be, am I focusing on places where I know that I could go and give information, like where my dad is, assisted living, right?
Facility.
Yep. People often sell their homes in order to do that. So you would develop a relationship with however many facilities that you want, so that they're advertising your information. But there are other ways to do that as well. It could be strictly through your top 50 and your SOI. And you could start getting introductions that way. You could go to
Bingo.
Bingo. You can go to Bingo.
I love bingo.
Yeah. So it could be a multi-pronged strategy under one pillar, right? And I would say part of that pillar would be that you get certified as a senior specialist, right? So it's one pillar, but you can have multiple strategies, and you should be building out a business plan for each one, right? The guy that I was speaking to this morning, he was like, open houses. I was like, great, what about them? What are we going to do? Like, if you just say, I'm going to do open houses, that's not a strategy. That's just a statement, right? There's no business plan involved. And then I said, what has that been working for you so far? And it hadn't. I said, so you're going to have to decide, what are you going to do differently inside of that pillar about open houses in order to make them more effective, right? And so that you're actually getting lead flow from it. So I would say make sure that you're thinking about it. Normally when somebody gives me 4 pillars, which I gave this guy the assignment this morning, he gave them to me and I said, great, by next week, I expect you to have some sort of strategy in writing for all 4, and then we'll review it again now that you've identified what they are. Yeah.
Yeah, and for those of you that are picking from one or multiples of these strategies, in our Free Friday coaching calls that we do, we have people that are the best of the best that have business systems and strategies on every single one. So you don't need to come up with your own. You can reach out to us and just say, hey, listen, these are what I'm looking to develop in my 4 pillars. Who should I be following? What should I be looking at? Right. So Stacy Caroli, she's back on the East Coast. Like, she has completely developed out working with seniors at the highest level. And her call on and training on how she does that is unbelievable. We had Zach Bach that did basically the all-day open house and how you get buyers from that open house in your car, looking at other properties same day, what to do the 3 hours before the open house. Like, people that are really utilizing these pillars of income with very concrete strategies. So if you're looking for guidance, just reach out and we'll connect you with those resources as well.
Yep. I love it. No need to recreate the wheel. Someone is doing it at a high level already, and they love sharing how they do it. So make sure that you're jumping on that. Okay, I'm going to share my screen so we can kind of go over this next page, because, oh, it's the numbers. It's Selena's favorite part. Okay. No, not even. Okay, let me make it bigger so I can see all of your smiling faces as we're doing this. So this is what we just went over, which was the 4 pillars. And if you're looking to keep motivated on it, I encourage you to write whatever those pillars are, print this page out and put it over your computer so that you're not forgetting that you should be working on those regularly. Because some of us are very visual, right? And sometimes we just need to be reminded of what they are. Okay. The next section, and I have it in 2 formats. So in your workbook, they have this practice worksheet, and I just put in examples so you could see how this works as we're going through it. And then I'm also going to give you in just a moment the ability to utilize a spreadsheet. If those of you who love spreadsheets as much as me would like to look at it from that perspective. Paula's nodding. She's like, yes, send me the spreadsheet afterwards. But when we do this in person, this is typically what we have. And whenever we redesigned this book, I actually made it I even gave you like, it's what you should be doing on each line. So we're going to go through this one at a time. Now, ask me why I put $100,000. I was telling Laura this morning. 9 times out of 10, when I ask somebody who's a brand new licensed agent how much money they want to make, I don't know why that's the magic number, but $100,000 is always it. Everyone always says 100,000. So I just went with that for today's exercise. Now, I don't always agree with the expenses here that they have in here, but because hopefully you're being very smart with your money, right? And leading with revenue all the time. But I went ahead and used what was in the workbook just so that we have it to use. So the idea is this is what I want to make. And they ask you to divide it by 0.5 because of the expenses. Now, whenever you see the cost to close, this is including everything from whatever your split is to additional fees to anything like that that is taken into consideration. So if you want to make $100,000, we really need to actually have a GCI of 200,000 based on your cost to close. If you're at a brokerage where it's less, take that into consideration. All of this is completely editable by you. And then operational expenses. This is everything from signs, lock boxes, marketing, open house signs, if you're farming and you're doing pop buys. And again, they're asking you to take in 25% of the GCI. It's going to depend on each one of you. If you're a business owner, which all of you that are here are realtors are, you should be tracking all of this anyway. So remember that this 25% is inclusive of everything you would write off on your taxes for your business. Okay, so take that into consideration. You should be tracking it year over year. If you don't know what it is and you just start tracking in 2026, next year, this number may be very concrete for you because you have actuals, right? You actually know what they are. Go ahead, Casey, you're muted.
Yeah, so I just want to point out, you know, a lot of times when someone says, well, I want to make 100,000, they're not looking at cost of business and they're not reinvesting in the business.
Yeah.
And so there's an important mindset piece here is to move from the mindset of a salesperson to the mindset of a business owner, because how you operate is going to be completely different in those two spaces. If you're operating like a salesperson, you're not going to be setting aside stuff or necessarily reinvesting in your business. They're going to be throwing money at things, hoping that they're going to bring you more business that aren't necessarily going to do that at all. You just are getting sold on programs. Versus if you're operating like a business owner and you realize, okay, I've got, in order for me to take home 100, here's what I need to make and make sure that these are the areas that I'm committed to reinvesting in my business. Like number one, don't be doing your own transaction coordination. This is the thing that most agents, particularly that are newer, want to make sure they're doing, and some even that aren't newer because they like to control the process. Well, that's the least effective use of your time if you want to be doing more transactions, is hire someone to do that and get some help, right? And so when you start thinking like a business owner and that you've got the cost to close and the operational expenses of actually running a business, it's going to help you focus on where you're going to get the highest return of your time, energy, and effort, number one. And it's going to help you in a mindset of treating your business like a business versus just a sales job where you're cashing commission checks.
Thank you. Love that. So we're going to move down. And now I just assumed a 50-50 split. Obviously, this is not always the case. Sometimes people are very buy side heavy. Sometimes people are list side heavy. It depends. I just went with ease and I only did one side so you could see how this works. So let's assume that we need to make 200,000 in GCI and it's split between the two. Basically, you're going to start filling these lines out. And this is what you can do in your workbook. It starts at 100,000. Then we're dividing by whatever your standard commission is. Guys, I can't stress this enough. If you're not tracking all of this right now, there are spreadsheets that do this for you. There's Sisu that's accessible via where we are at EXP and anywhere else. You can sign up for Sisu and you will know by seeing exactly what you put in for every transaction that you've done, what your average is. So you're going to fill this in with whatever your average is. I went with the easy numbers for today. I went with 2.5%. So on a calculator, basically you're going to follow this little guide. 100,000 divided by 2.5% is 4 million. We need to sell $4 million in volume of listings in order to get to this. Okay, then you're going to figure out what your average sales price is. Again, a simple spreadsheet, guys. Every time you have a closing, it's going in the spreadsheet. At the bottom of it in a Google Sheet or Microsoft Excel, you can see exactly what your average is. I know on any given day what the average is on the team for the Rick Chiha real estate sales team, right? And then it's even better when you know it's the average listings. You sort that by listings and you sort that by buyers. Sometimes our listings, it's a higher average sales price than our buy-side transactions. So you want to, over time, start knowing these exact numbers. We're not operating from a I think this is it, right? You're operating from, this is what 2025 looked like for me. And I would encourage you that if you haven't done it already, take all of your 2025 numbers and put that in and start tracking it. You can pull a report from your brokerage, you can track it based on what you know you closed. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, my average sales price is actually 602,000. Well, what does that mean? We don't have to close as many listings in order to equal this number. So start making sure that you know these numbers so that each year when you do your business plan, you're looking at real numbers. This is not nebulous. This is actual based on what you're currently doing. So based on a $500,000 sales price, again, we're going to take 4 million divided by 500,000. It means we need to sell 8 listings in order to get to this 100,000. Again, we're going to go right back to tracking. Anybody noticing a theme? Like, then we have to say, what's our conversion rate of listings taken to listings sold? So this is where you really take tracking to the next level. We're not just tracking what we close. We're tracking every single activity that we do. How many listings did I take versus how many sold? So sometimes our listings don't sell. Sometimes they sat forever because you had an unrealistic seller. Sometimes they withdrew for whatever reason, personal reason. Over time, you're going to start knowing, is it high, is it low? Do I sell every listing? Great, change that to 100%. But you should know your numbers. I put in an industry average right now for the last 3 years. This was based on the average over the last 3 years, was 75% of listings taken by an agent sell. Okay, so this is just using that. So we're going to take the 8, divide it by 75%, and that means we need 10.67. Let's just say it's 11. We need to take 11 listings. Now, what's your conversion rate of appointments you go on versus listings that you actually get? Okay, again, you're tracking. Every appointment you go on, guys, it goes in a tracker. And you're like, did I get it? Did I not get it? Okay, and then my suggestion would be if you didn't get it, you call and you ask why. You're only going to improve if you actually call and ask why. Go ahead, Casey.
So this is a great thing to do in review of 2025 as a starting point. So if you take your 2025 year and you put in these numbers, it'll give you a starting point of where you're at, and you can learn a lot, right? You can be like, oh man, am I working for a reduced commission more often than not based on what it's averaging out, across the board? Or you can look at, well, I'm not going on, well, maybe I let the sellers talk me into what they wanted it to be priced at, and so my conversions of listings taken versus listings sold, that's a place for me to strengthen, is my conversation with the seller, and maybe having a pre-negotiated price improvement if we're not seeing XYZ in the first couple of weeks. And so when you start to, and you can reach out to Selena, you can reach out to me, and have conversations around, and it's always in the context of what's working in my business and what can be improved. And the thing that's great about this, if you take the time to do it, is there's no room for a story. Because otherwise, if we don't deal with the actual numbers, we are inclined as human beings to just make up a story. And those stories never really serve us because they're based on our perspective, which generally is going to be skewed on some level with some kind of emotion versus what actually is. So if you're willing to, look at 2025, okay, well, here's my point A, and go, okay, great. Now I'm starting from a blank canvas or a clean slate going into 2026, and I'm going to set that. And here's where I know there's opportunities for me to improve in my skills. And then how am I intentional in that skill set improvement? You can really go leaps and bounds further than just, running numbers to see how much money you want to take home.
Awesome. And what I do like to see, and this is a different kind of story, is that it will tell us where we have room to grow. So as a coach, typically whenever I'm coaching a team or a brokerage in the past, and we start to see that this conversion rate from listing appointment to listing taken is below 60%, then there's room for growth on your appointment, right? Maybe then we focus a little bit more time on learning to be better at the actual presentation, because the conversion rate on average is 75%. For someone who's been in the business for a long time and is really a master lister, we really see this be more like 90%. And I'll give you a great example of following these numbers. I used to run a team in New York, and best listing agent I've ever met in my entire life. Incredible about going on appointments and getting them taken and selling them. Like, that was his mojo, right? but we tracked every single appointment to every single one taken. And all of a sudden I started looking at the spreadsheet and I said, wow, we're went from like 95% to 90% to 87%. And we started seeing it go down. And I was like, what's happening? What's happening? And we sat down and I said, like, this is not you. Like 25 years of business, you're typically closing those. That conversion rate for you is over 90%. He was burnt out. He needed a minute. I said, great, go on vacation. I'll talk to you when you get back, right? Like it starts to show that something is happening or where you have some room for improvement, and how wonderful that we have exposure to so many people who can teach us what they're doing, right? And we can learn from that and make our presentation better. And the same thing, like if you're taking them and they're not selling, my guess would be, as a coach, is that you're taking them at too high a price. You're not being realistic with a seller. So now we train on that conversation, how to be more confident in having that kind of conversation. Does that make sense? Great. So don't be afraid of your numbers. Look at them as an opportunity to help guide you on where you can focus your attention. Like we can all take a ton of training, but I would rather that you focus on the training that's going to move the needle for you. Right. So let's instead I would say, great, let's take as much training as possible on improving the listing presentation so that we can get that conversion higher for you. So you're going to do the same thing on the buy side. Now, conversion rate from buyer, and they call them buyer presentations because I would encourage you that if you were to do it this way, your conversion would be higher. If you actually went and had a buyer presentation, just like you had a listing presentation, your conversion would be higher at actually getting those buyers into a home. We can show homes all day, but when you write an offer on the back of a car, or you sign your agency or your BRBC on the back of a car because you didn't actually have a presentation on the front end, you're showing up as a different type of agent. So your conversion rate will be higher if you're doing a full buyer presentation before you actually show homes. Okay, so think about that. Now, typically this conversion rate is lower. It's about 60% for buyers that are actually out looking at homes to buyers. That's right now. It's just in the last couple of years. It used to be a little bit higher, but that's because we have a lot of folks out there that aren't sure about pulling the trigger in today's market. Again, I'm going to tell you to work on your buyer presentation. You're giving them everything to expect about what's happening in the market, mortgage, opportunities for purchasing, things like that. So again, track everything because it's going to tell you what you can work on and what you can do differently. Now, for those of you that love a spreadsheet, I'm going to pop this into the chat. This is Workman's way of doing it inside of an actual spreadsheet. Now, please bear in mind that this is going to be view only for you. So if you want to use it, you just have to hit File and make a copy. You would go to File, make a copy. Okay. And it's going to let you edit it. So very similarly done, right? Some of it's a little bit different than the workbook, but you're going to put in your numbers. You're going to put in your commission. Like I'm going to change this one to 3% so that you can see how it starts to change. Like if your average listing commission is 3% and your buy side's 2.5%, whatever your current commission split is, and whatever your listing price is, it's going to start calculating. I need to sell 5 listings and 6 buyers. This is what you're going to make. And this is what your gross is going to be. You need to close 11 houses, basically 1 a month. Now, this is where it really starts to get good. So again, we're putting whatever your listings sold to listings taken is. You're putting in your percentages. It means that you need to sell 5, so I need to take 7. I need to take 7, so I need to go on 12 presentations. So this actually means I need to have 0.96 presentations monthly. And then in order to do this, you need 31 every 31 days, right? Now, it gets a little bit more down here when you start thinking about it. How many do you actually need to go on? And what exactly does that need to look like? 12, 7 taken, listings closed as 5, buyers closed as 6, and now here's where it is. So similar concept, just done in a spreadsheet form. I would tell you to keep looking at this as you start improving your numbers throughout the year. So if you wanted to, you could start here and then you could come down here and duplicate and make another one and say, okay, I started working on this and these were my results in quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, based on real numbers. All right. So you would keep changing your average or you would keep changing your percentage. And basically what you're doing is sort of gamifying it for yourself, because to be honest, guys, does 14 listings in a year sound too terribly bad? No. Right? It's not. Sometimes we make it a much bigger or further goal than if we can actually go down and drill down into the numbers and say, could I go on 14 listing appointments in 365 days? Yeah, Paula, see? Paula's like, yeah, I can, right? But then that means that you're working towards that goal every day, whatever it is that you're doing. As far as lead conversion, that's another thing I did when I was looking up these numbers for conversions. The lead conversion, meaning an incoming lead coming in. And now this is not SOI and top 50 because those are two of the highest converting leads that you can possibly get. But if it was social media, Facebook ads, whatever that is that you're running, it's only a 1 to 2% conversion rate right now. 1 to 2. So I want you to think about how many leads you have to have come in order to get to that. So let's just take the 14.22 for instance. If we want to close 14.22 and let's just go at 2%, 711 is what you would need to have come in. And that means that every day you are working on getting enough leads to support that just on the listing side, 711 leads in order to equate to that same number. Okay, so what are you doing every day to bring more leads into your database in order for you to be able to convert enough of them to equal 14 listings? Does that make sense? Who here loves numbers as much as me?
Who here has questions on the numbers that they're currently doing and any hiccups that you might have with getting clear on what your targets are?
Anyone start filling this out and hit a road, like a bump, a speed bump? Anyone here already tracking all of this? Oh, Ela, love it. Love it. Paula, some, you're doing some. Okay. So there's loads of spreadsheets out there. And if anybody wants any specifically, like we have what we call the transaction tracker at Workman, I'm happy to give you a version of that. Just shoot me an email, selena@empirebuilders.pro. It's going to track, you should be tracking listings, pendings, and actual closed transactions so that, it's something that like if I called you up and said, Paula, what's your average price point to the dollar right now? Would you know it? No. Yeah. So it's okay. It's just something to work on. And it's not in any sense to babysit or anything like that. It's because I want you to be able to know this. And like when you sit down and do your business plan next year, you're like, I came prepared. I have my average of everything. I know what it is. I know exactly what it is. But there's no problem that we can't solve with selling another house. I mean, at the end of the day, when someone comes to me and they're like, oh my gosh, my car is broken down, like I have to figure this out and I don't know what I'm going to do and I need to get it fixed. And I'm like, okay, let's figure out what's your average price point and what we need to get into contract in order to make that happen. And do you think you could sell 2 more houses this year? Yes, I think I could. Okay, great. That's what we need. Okay, so like it's one of the most beautiful things about what we do is that we have direct control over the amount of money that we make. If you work in corporate America, you're reliant on a raise, which is typically only like maximum 3% cost of living increase. Okay, so when we're doing it in this way, you can say, I could sell 2 more houses and I could solve that problem. Okay, so I want you to think about it that way. And the only way for you to know that is to be able to track all of this. Any questions, thoughts, big ahas based on that fabulous numbers game?
Selena, I apologize, and I'll turn off my camera if it's making anyone dizzy. I'm on my Peloton.
No, you're good.
I just was wondering if you could give insight to agents that do not have a history of their success and don't know what they could or could not do, and how they might use this worksheet for planning what they want to accomplish. So if they just don't have the sales experience at this time, maybe there aren't very many people on the call that have that. However, there are a lot in the business that do.
That's a great question. I love that, Wendy. So I would say definitely use what I gave you there as far as those standard conversions. And I can send out to everyone. Laura, will you screenshot everybody that's on here, especially? And I know it's on the recording and you can go back and look at it, but I would say to use those average conversion rates that are there right now. But the thing that would be different is to find out what the average sales price is where that agent is currently. So in that case, like if I put in 500,000, but if you're in a higher price point market and the average is 800,000, that's going to change that number for you. But I would use that 75% conversion ratio for listings taken to listings sold, because that's about an industry average right now. And honestly, if you are brand new, I would say take that and make it 50%, because you're just not going to be as experienced. Same thing for listing appointments to listings taken. I put in 75% because that was the average right now. If they are a brand new agent and they don't have a lot of training or a lot of support, I would say knock it down to 50% if they've never done it before. If they
Thank you.
are improving, go back up to the 75. And if you've been in the industry for a long time, you're really looking at a higher conversion rate because you've mastered that skill. But the most important thing that's going to be there is going to be that average sales price. And anybody who's new can go in and honestly, you could look it up in ChatGPT for a specific area now, it will tell you. But I would encourage them to do it in their MLS and say, like, if they're going to work in a very specific part of town, find out what the average price point is, and that's what you're going to use. And it's a good place to start, and it gives you a great goal based on like your real numbers that are in the industry, and then you're ultimately working to improve those numbers for yourself.
Thank
Great
you.
question. Really good question. Anything else? Anybody?
I had a question. You shared the beautiful spreadsheet, and I didn't fully understand the part that told us how to make a copy so we could use it.
Oh, yep, you got it. Here, hang on. I'm going to pull it up again one more time just so you can see it. So when you click
Thank
on the
you.
link that I gave you, you're going to come up here. It's going to come up and it's going to say it's view only. It's not going to let you type on anything, right? You're going to come over here to file and you're going to click make a copy, and you can name it whatever you want. I would suggest your name, and it's going to save it into your drive. And then that one is fully editable. Now you should be, it says in big green over here, only edit the cells that are green. Don't overwrite anything else, guys. Like, it's going to kill the spreadsheet. But just edit the stuff that's in green. And like I said, anytime, and Brooke, this is for you as well. If you want to make one for once a quarter, you go to the bottom and you click on that little arrow and you type duplicate. And now you have a second version of it at the bottom. And I would just rename it and say Q1 goal worksheet, right? And now you can change it as each quarter finishes. I would go in and update it with your actual real numbers. Great question.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Nina, the link is just above. Let me make sure. I think you might have come in after I popped in. Let's see. Anybody else? No? Feeling good? Excellent. Casey, do you want me to just continue?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to share. So Casey mentioned it earlier, but this is a great page if you are struggling, and especially if there are new agents that they're wondering what it is that they need to be working on or what might be optional as a pillar of income. As Casey mentioned, we do have some very specific strategies around top 50, right? So we have something that we could send you if that's okay. I'm just going to tell you what I told the guy this morning. As a coach, when there's 4 pillars, I'm only going to tell you, you have 2 that are mandatory. One is top 50 and one is SOI. I love you, but they're just mandatory. There's a reason for that. Oh, I did balloons. They are the top sources of income for agents converting right now. And that's because it's so much easier to do business with people who you know and like than it is a stranger. Go ahead, Casey.
So earlier this year, I had a new agent, his first year in the business, reach out to me, and he was looking for some coaching. And he's 27 years old, never been in real estate before. He was his first full year in the industry, and he had no point of reference of whether he was being successful, not being successful. All he knew was that he wanted to be more successful. And I said, well, how many transactions have you done year to date? And he goes, well, 17. And I said, okay, where did that business come from? And he said, well, I had a mentor that told me not to spend any money getting business because I should be getting business for free with my mouth. So he said, don't buy any leads. And he said, what he told me to do was go call every single person in my phone, tell them that I was in real estate, Let them know that I wanted to be a resource for anything that they might need, a book, a recommendation for a vendor, like whatever it is that they might need at any point in time. And then ask them the question, what would it take to earn your business moving forward? And that's going to be a different answer for every person. And that's how he did 17 deals, by calling the people that were just in his phone. And why I share that story with you is that is how simple your business plan can be in an execution standpoint. And my guess is, based on what I know from being in the industry 20 years and all the calls I've been on with agents, I don't know any other agent other than that one that's actually done that. And so there you have a free plan that if you kept it simple and executed on that, it cost you nothing for the lead. And oh my goodness, the business that might come from that, and then repeat business. Again, 27-year-old kid, no credibility, not a lot of business expense, just picking up the phone and letting, like, call by call by call, not sending an email blast, call by call by call, and then making notes on how he could be a resource for them and what it was going to take to earn their business moving forward. People will tell you what it will take to work with them if you ask. So for somebody looking for a plan, that's a marketing plan, that's an easy one to start with.
Love it. Love it. So it does make me think of something I wanted to mention on that spreadsheet that you're going to use to track all of your business. One of the most important things to track that most agents do not is where you got the lead. So that when I call you and say, what's your biggest lead source? I don't want it to be where you get the most leads. I want it to be the ones you close the most, because those are the ones we're going to work. So a lot of times when a team will come and say, oh, you know, we want to improve, we want to increase. And I say, great, let's figure out what we're doing really well right now. And they don't know what that is because they don't know where those leads that they closed came from. It's very hard to know where we might want to double down and spend a little bit more time. I always like to get the story of, there's a guy here in Texas, it was a husband-wife team, and the husband loved to show me everything that they were generating from Facebook. He was generating 1,000 leads a month from Facebook. It was incredible. And I said, great, how many did we close? None. Zero. And I'm like, don't you spend one more penny on Facebook ads. Now, what we did see was that his wife was closing top 50 leads like nobody I'd ever seen before. Almost everything in their closed transaction tracker was top 50. She loved it. She loved doing pop-bys. She loved bringing them stuff. She loved seeing them in person. And I was like, we're going to take a top 50 and we're going to make it a top 100. You love this. You're passionate about it. You want to do it, right? So make sure that you're tracking what you are closing, because if you're spending $500 a month on Facebook leads and you're not closing any of them, stop it. Stop it. They're harder to convert anyway. I would rather that you focus more on the people who already know and love you. So top 50 and SOI can be those two. You're looking for two other ones, as Casey mentioned, that you're super passionate about. Do not choose door knocking if you are afraid of door knocking, because you're never going to do it. You're never going to do it. If you don't like it, don't choose it. Choose something that sounds interesting or that you know that you're going to be like jazzed up about doing. You love open houses? Great. Do 7 a week. Okay, whatever that looks like. So there's a lot of options in here. Geographic farming, for sale by owner, expireds are coming back. In case anybody's wondering, and used to do that in the past. They're back. We're in that market. We're definitely seeing listings expire. So make sure that you're going through here and taking a look at what's in here. If you're unsure, I also like giving this to new agents who aren't really sure about what kind of lead generation strategies are out there. They're like, I don't know what geographic farming is. Tell me more, right? Anything like that. And then some other things that it mentions is like things that you could do to help build your business and your actual production and just who you are as an entrepreneur. Make sure that you're reading 4 business books a year. If you need advice, I read like 1 a week. I can give you like a ton of options if you're looking for something specific. I gave one to that young man I was on this morning with, Doors Open When You Knock, if you're interested in door knocking. We also have a great free Friday coaching call from that guy. He rebuilt his business in 3 different cities, all through door knocking. So it was a really incredible way to do it. Make sure this is, okay, I'm sorry, I have to say this. Going to business events should be in your budget. I can't tell you how many times we invited people to EXPCon and they didn't have the money. Okay, or we invite them to an event. I want you to decide before the end of this month which conferences you want to go to next year. And I want you to find out what the ticket price is, the plane, the hotel, and what it's going to cost to spend on food while you're there. And then that goes in your budget. And then you add up all four, whatever it is. And then I want you to tell me how many houses you have to sell to pay for it. Okay, because we're only a couple houses away from being able to go to every conference that you want to go to. But if it's not in your business plan to go, you haven't figured out what the cost is, you're not even taking that into consideration. Go ahead, Casey.
So for an agent if we look at the 2024 numbers, and 81% of all agents sold 0 homes, there is a reason why that is. And I can guarantee you those are not the people that were going to business events, because they were not actually doing the business of the business, right? And so the mindset of a newer agent or an agent that's just, getting into it is, well, I'm working to transition to where this can be my income, not just extra income. In order to do that and pay my household expenses, I can't afford to go to events until I'm doing more business. And I'm going to tell you that if we go back to the beginning of the conversation of where we started, it is having the mindset of what is the mindset or way of thinking that's going to be required for me to get the outcome that I want. And success leaves clues. So people that are the most successful in the industry are constantly doing 2 things. They're taking the time and the money to invest in themselves and get in those rooms and at those events to take their knowledge, their skills, and their relational influence to the next level. So that's not an optional, when I'm selling more homes, I'm going to go attend events. This is a critical piece of me doing more business and growing my business. And then when you go with like intentionality, right? We have somebody that's part of our community that attended the annual convention and got closed within the next 12 months, 6 agent-to-agent referrals from relationships that were made with agents out of the area at that convention. 1 year, 6 transactions that would not have happened. So I want you to start to think about your time and money that you invest in events differently than you might be thinking about it right now, as not an optional thing, but actually part of the business plan and a critical component that's going to have you keep leveling up and doing more business. And when you're thinking like a business owner, not a salesperson, if we go back to that mindset, the salesperson is, well, how much do I need to be, what do I want to make, and how many deals do I have to do to sell to make that money so that I'm providing a livelihood for my family? Versus a business owner is, nope, I'm a business owner. So where am I allocating for my education, skilling up, and then new business that can come as a result of those relationships? It's a very different way to think about it. It's not an option. It's a piece of the foundation. So
Love that. So the remaining parts of the workbook are all about setting the goals based on everything we've talked about, right? And implementing. You're going to see several pages that are called sprints. And the idea behind that is those are all of the activities required to complete a project. Okay, so if that project is, I'm going to start geofarming, I would take some training, I would find out everything there is to know. We, talk to someone who's doing it at a really high level, and then you start creating that action item list about what it's going to take to get that done for you. So the rest of it is all about what's it going to take for you to actually implement what you have said inside of the workbook. I know we only have 4 minutes remaining. Is there anything that anyone would like to follow up on, have more information on, get some clarity on, anything like that?
I have something. I realize I'm very good at connecting with somebody that first moment. And then I feel like my follow-up game is so bad. And I'll even put it on my calendar, like follow up with people I connected with at EXPCon. And then I don't do it. And I do other things for work. And I push it off and I push it off. And I'm just like, I don't know if I need more discipline or if you guys have good tricks to make sure you are, and I use CRMs, but I'm
Okay.
probably not using them effectively. So yeah, tell me about that.
That was going to be my next question was, are you using a CRM? So for any of you that are using it, I mean, there's kind of a steadfast rule that's been in place for a long time, which is when you finish a conversation with anyone inside that CRM, you have already set the to-do for the next time that you're calling them back, or whatever you said, right? So if you said, I'll talk to you in a week, great. You've set the to-do inside of that. You've added the notes in the system. And as far as the follow-up, I mean, that is Okay, Brooke, I'm going to give it to you straight. That's like, are you in integrity with yourself?
Right.
Like, and what is it that's going to hold you back from doing that? Like, if you had a great relationship with someone and you said, I'm going to talk to you next week, right? Like, you look at it and you say, these are non-negotiables. And there's that whole concept of swallowing the frog or eating the frog, right? Like, if it's something that for whatever reason is uncomfortable for you, try to do that first thing in the morning, because the rest of the day is going to be like a total win. Like, you're just going to be like, I hate making follow-up calls, so I'm going to do them all as soon as I start. And then the rest of the day is nothing but gold, right? Because the
Yeah.
hard part is over. But make sure that well, let me ask you, do you feel like whenever you have those great connections and it moves forward, you've had wins from that in the past?
Yes, yes. I'm working on agent attraction. I'm working on helping more buyers, helping more sellers. My sphere of influence is always sending me people that want to buy and sell. Um, and yeah, I just feel like I have a huge gap in following up with the people and having a system for it.
Okay. Go
You
ahead,
open
Casey.
recommendation? If you say you're going to talk next week or next month, that's not a follow-up system at all. If you have a date and time scheduled when you leave a conversation, regardless of what that conversation is, and then what's going to happen before you talk to them, you don't need to worry about follow-up because it's already in your calendar, right? So
Right.
let's take you go to an event and let's say it's convention. You can do a hashtag in your phone or just a note in your phone that's, 2026 convention. And when you do a search for that, all of the names that you've input in there or contacts that you've added are going to be there. So now you have a systematic place to go do that. If you're not sitting, how many agents are actually sitting in front of their computer to log stuff in a CRM? Some of them, if they have it time blocked, but if you look at Rick, he's driving around in a car 9 hours, appointment to appointment and having conversations and calls in between, in which case, like, what can you do? Each contact in your phone, there's a note section in. You can make a note in the contacts in your phone, and at least you've got it in there so that you know when you're going to talk to them next what the history of that's been. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. It's just about what's going to work for you. But in my experience, if you have something on the calendar that's the next date and time and what's going to happen before you speak, then that is your follow-up and you've built it in so you're not running around wondering who you need to follow up with.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you, ladies. Let's go crush it.
Yeah, love it. All right, I know that we're at the bottom of the hour. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to share? No? Everybody's just ready to go crush 2026? I saw a lot of eyebrows go up. That was funny.
So for those of you that are wanting to stay plugged in and continue learning, Free Friday coaching call next Friday. What is the topic, Selena, and who do we have that guest?
Carl Morkarian, and it's on commercial. So anybody who's interested in getting into commercial or more experience with commercial, he is killing it in that industry and in that space right now. So he'll be sharing tips and tricks for that.
Yep. And as a reminder, we have years and years of catalogs of those Free Friday coaching calls. So if you need how to crush it on open houses as a pillar of income or circle of influence or top 50, we have all of those assets, just reach out. We're happy to share them. And congratulations and kudos to you for investing in yourselves and your business. Let's make it a rockin' 2026. And that starts now. We finished 2025. Good to see you all.
Hi, guys.
Thanks, Lena.